And it's welcome back to We Love Ugly Data, the Deep Analysis podcast. It's episode 31 or series 4, episode 9, if you're doing it that way. With me is Dan. Hi, Dan.
Hey, Matt. So series 4, we're like slow horses. Did we get renewed for series 5?
We get renewed as long as I can be bothered to do it. That's basically because we are a zero budget podcast. We don't have to rely on any negotiations. It's purely on the basis of whether we want to do it or not. And for the time being, I haven't lost the will to live yet. But Dan,
zero budget. We are the slow horses of the analyst community, aren't we?
I guess so. I mean, I tend to overuse the phrase "faster horses" when I'm talking about AIIM processes, which I'm now banned. It's a banned thing. I can't say it anymore. So I shouldn't get into the whole horses thing. Part of the format, as we know, for the podcast is saying the format of the podcast. So here is the format of the podcast. It is 3 topics. It is 30 minutes. Today, as Dan is on for the first time since June, we will, of course, be talking mainly about IDP. There's something we kind of trailed a little bit back in June. We've now actually got can talk about properly. There's loads of new vendor profiles to talk about, but it's very IDP happy. So as Dan suggested, I'm just going to put on a cup of tea and put my feet up and let Dan talk for 30 minutes. But let's get right into it. I normally like to do the VVs first, but Dan wants to do the survey first. So let's get into the survey first. So topic 1, there's a new MMI on IDP. That's 2 big acronyms which we need to explain as we go through. We'll start again with MMI. So those of you who have been around Deep Analysis will know that we do these extensive studies or surveys, if you want to refer to them that way, which we call market momentum indexes, where we take a topic du jour, something which is top of mind, zeitgeisty even, if you wish. We work with some commercial partners who help pay for it, and then the analysts and then build a survey. We did one that came out earlier this year on supply chain. There were 2 last year on various flavors of AI and automation and unstructured data. This is the first opportunity to mention the show notes. All of the links to the previous MMIs will be in the show notes. So whether you like it or not, you've got no excuse not to download them. They are all available from their various commercial partners for free from following the links. So that's a little bit on MMIs. Dan, what I did was I went through, and it's a huge report that I know kind of took over your life for a bunch of months. So we're not going to be able to kind of encapsulate the entire thing here today. So first up, before we get into the data, just tell us a little bit about what we were trying to capture with the IDP MMI. You use both acronyms, and then a little bit about what was the sample size, where were the people from, that kind of contextual information.
Sure. MMI, it sounds like an immunization shot of some sort, doesn't it? Yeah, let me give you some numbers. Well, first of all, for those who have tuned in for the very first time and have never listened to We Love Ugly Data before,
welcome.
Yeah, welcome. IDP is an acronym for Intelligent Document Processing. And that is when computers can read documents like human beings do. To sum it up, there's a lot of cool technology, but that's essentially what we're doing here, is teaching computers how to read for us and then do things with the information that we would do. So that's IDP. It used to be sort of this little hidden techie thing that was in the back office, but I think we've reached peak IDP, Matt, because a certain other analyst firm has just covered it for the first time in their Foxy thing. And so that means it's all downhill from here, right, at this point. Yeah, no, just kidding. So I've been in this business for 30 years, working on IDP and document management, ECM, and everything around document automation. And I have never seen the amount of disruption that this study showed us. So you're looking at some of the things here. First of all, the numbers: 600 enterprises, all over 10 million, all over 500 employees. So this is serious enterprise companies in the USA, Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. Just those 4 countries. and it's a very large cohort for this type of a study.
Yes, it is. Yes.
And we went out and we asked, it was almost 50 in-depth questions. What we learned, first of all, was an amazing 65% of the respondents are considering or already have a new project.
Mm-hmm.
That is such a large number of disruption. We wanted to dig deeper and find out, what's going on over there. So we found out that in follow-up, what's the purpose of the new IDP project? Over half of the respondents said, we're going to upgrade existing use cases. And this points right to Gen AI becoming part of IDP solutions in the past 3 years, and we can do some new tricks with it. So I think that's been a huge disruptor. And 20% are going to find new things to do, and I think that's only the beginning. Some other things in the survey would point to that. And this should just send a chill down the spine of every CEO of every legacy software company. 66% of these projects are going to replace an existing IDP product. Again, those just numbers, I've never seen this level of disruption in all my years in the business. And it's all down to the new superpowers that we've gained by bringing LLMs into what already was a pretty impressive AI technology platform to begin with.
Now we've talked in the past on previous podcasts, and I'll try and dig out the links and put them in the show notes. We talked previously about how IDP is probably the first use of generative AI technology that's starting to pay for itself in terms of actually generating money, but also it's one that was very much transformed by transformers. And we don't need to retread that, but there's a whole bunch of previous stuff that you've written and we've discussed, which kind of explains why IDP is at the fore at the moment, particularly not necessarily because the use cases are new, but the fact that the capabilities in order to do those use cases are larger, more efficient, more accurate, all the stuff you get with using transformer-derived technology like LMMs. Would that be accurate, Dan?
Yeah, you nailed it. And at the beginning of this 3 years ago, we all looked at it and tried to separate the hype from the reality. And it's taken a couple of years, but I can conclusively state today that an IDP project is the lowest of low-hanging fruit on the AI tree. So if you're listening to this and you're going, we don't want to be one of those 95% failed project that if the MIT guys come this week, and that,
yes.
We don't want to be on that list of shame. If you want to be in the 5%, then this is where you go, because you can get this started. You're probably doing something already with document processing. And now you can add Gen AI tools to it that are going to do all the things we like to say, faster, cheaper, better. So that's really what I think that this study has nailed.
So the last thing I want to get on, just for these three first three graphs, which are up on screen right now, is the last of those, which is, will a new IDP project replace an existing IDP application? And that's basically a 66-34 split. So 2/3, 1/3 split on whether the projects are brownfield or whether they're greenfield. Right. So is this IDP increasing its creep into enterprises, or is it replacing existing ones? Now that suggests that over a third of new IDP projects are net new. So in fact, there's using a green bar, which I'm sure is not entirely on purpose here, but they're actually greenfield things. So these are new industries or new use cases.
Yes. All the above.
All the above.
We've seen a tremendous amount of interest in the past year in supply chain applications, which was sort of a dark corner for the use of this type of document AI in the past. And it's just lit up. Another area that we're seeing, and this is down to Gen AI's capabilities being added on, is in the architectural engineering construction AEC space, where you have very, very complex documents with many layers and references to other drawings and things like that. And we're seeing a tremendous amount of interest to use IDP technologies now in that space. So those are new. Yeah, any way you slice it, I think the numbers are pretty convincing.
So let's just dig into a little bit more. I brought up a couple more graphs from the study, Dan. For those people who are watching this, for those people who are listening, we'll make sure we read out the numbers. The two kind of interesting ones, at least for me, is a kind of, not exactly an IDP outsider, but I'm not quite as, I'm only kind of like up to my ankles in the weeds, whereas you're up to your neck in it. So the first of these was the question, what business applications do you use to store, process, and manage documents? Now, we've asked similar questions in previous surveys. So it's interesting to correlate what you've got and what we've got. But of course, this was very much speaking specifically about IDP. And what's surprising here is that the largest group, although we only just, is customers that store, and it's 62%. This is a multi-select question. So the idea is that you've picked all the places that you store them. It doesn't add up to 100, but 62%, so nearly 2/3 of customers are storing documents in our CRM, which is kind of surprising, I guess, Dan.
Yes, it was. So this is the first year we've done this survey, and we're hoping to repeat this. So this question hasn't been asked before, but we sort of know, you, me, and Alan, who cover this stuff. For those of you who don't know, Matt knows Salesforce very well and has covered it for years. And of course, Alan is one of the experts in enterprise content management. So between the three of us, we couldn't think of anything before that we had seen that points to CRM systems becoming essentially the systems of record for documents. Mm-hmm. Now, this is one of those aha things that popped out of the study. Now, as we get deeper into our own work, looking at Salesforce and what they're doing over there, and also other companies too, Oracle and others that have CRM. Unstructured data management has become officially a big thing as part of their big data stacks over there in the past couple of years. So I think it was a bit of a surprise to me, but I think to the customers, the end users, they might go, what do you mean? That's where most of the documents flow in our company, either from the sales side, the marketing side, the customer support side, which is where CRM, makes
well, I
money,
think that's
right?
that's kind of a point. I think if we were, and we didn't have the data for this survey, if we dug into, if you said CRM, talk to us about those documents, you're going to find an awful lot of documents related to customer cases, whether they're customer sales cases, or whether it's customer support cases, all that supporting document. So that will be what we would expect to dig into there. Just to go down. I mean, ECM, enterprise content management, and traditional document management was only a point behind, with sort of 61. So within a fairly close relationship, that's where we would expect people to be storing a large amount of those documents. But I'm guessing what we would find in an ECM or what we would find in a CRM would be quite different documents. Documents here being a very generic idea for a file container containing some binary, right?
Yeah. This also points, Matt, to the well-known problem that it's likely there are more than one copy of these documents being stored. One's in the CRM and one's in the system of record, the ECM, being lifecycle managed, right? And that's an ongoing problem we have in the industry. This next chart, what do you believe would make your IDP implementation successful? Mm-hmm. The reason why we called this one out was after you can talk about all the changes and things companies want to do with change management and reducing headcount and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But still, the number one thing that people are looking to do is reduce process time.
Yep. Make
the process happen faster than it had before. And that's been the leader, in my experience, since 1993, when I first went out to my first trade show and stood there and said, hey, if you do this, then you're going to be able to do that faster. And that is still came out number one. But you can see close behind it was straight through processing, which was related to time. if you can process things without humans touching them. Interestingly, and this is what we also call out, the least of the choices, at 31%, was to replace people.
Yeah, which funnily enough does correlate to data we had from an MMI that we did along with Highland at the end of last year, where we asked people around their automation projects, what were their aims, and the lowest amongst those was headcount reduction.
Yeah, so at least in this part of the corporation, humans shouldn't be fleeing to the mountains because there's hope over here. There's a lot of need for human wisdom and intuition in these processes, as people are finding out as they're building agents, how difficult it is to replace the mind. Okay, yeah,
and that, you know, so now we go from talking about AI and agents to talking about paper, and this is always the stuff that kind of shocks not you, and not probably people who are that deep in the weeds of IDP, but generalist technologists often don't believe these kind of stats, Dan. So let's get into that first one about document sources.
Yeah, well, it even surprised me, Matt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, as somebody who's been around a while, because I've been covering IDP at Deep Analysis for 4 years now, and I've talked to hundreds of vendors. I've never heard one vendor talk to me about scanning. They're only concerned about the software side of IDP, right? They just assume that these images and documents are going to show up and be ingested, right?
Yeah.
And so I really haven't spent much time looking at image scanning, which is where paper gets into the system. And so to see 61% of the processes still include paper, that was very interesting to me. We've all had a laugh about faxes are still at 37%, but it's not funny, it's serious. So those were two numbers that jumped out of that. But more, to me, what was more striking was, how do you expect the volume of paper-based documents to change over the next 12 months?
Yes.
Looking forward. You'd think, well, they'll mostly go down. No, 48% of the respondents think it's going to increase. Now, if you add that to the 17% that say it's going to stay the same, 65% are saying we're going to have as much paper and probably a lot more to deal with. So that blows the mind of a lot of people who live in sort of a digital bubble these days. But this is the problem that large businesses are dealing with every single day.
Yeah, and interestingly, at the bottom, this will be the shock for, let's say, the good folks from Xerox PARC in about 1973. In 12 months, all paper will be limited from the process. Only 1% put the thumbs up. So in the year of 2025, only 1% of respondents thought that paper would go. The paperless office.
50 years. Yeah.
Exactly. In 50 years, roughly speaking, I don't know exactly when the first Alto came out, but in that 50 years, we have not got to the paperless office yet. And as you pointed out, we're actually a more papery. Perhaps that scanning number and the increasing amount of paper is perhaps related. Certainly, we've spoken to organizations who are.
So if we extrapolate that, Matt, it took us 50 years to get to 1%. How long would it take us to get to 50% quick?
Well, outside our rate of careers, Dan.
2,500 years. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, paper's going to be around a long time. Get used to it, people.
Well, indeed, and funny enough, we did a piece of work with an organisation whose business is scanning a couple of years ago, helping them to prepare for the fact that there are mountains of paper that people want to have activated for all sorts of AI-related processes, and they're partnering with a lot of those software companies aforementioned to fill in the scanning gap to get from paper archive an electronic thing, so you can start with IDP. So there's a whole swathe of organizations out there who are finding a kind of new life. Anyway, look, we've taken up loads of time on this, which is good because it's worth taking up time on this survey. You're probably thinking, if you're watching or listening to this, I want to get hold of this survey. How do I get hold of this survey? Well, the links will be in the show notes. Up on screen right now is the form from AIIM, where you can go and download it. I'll put the links up there. It's just give some contact details and download it for free. And then you can go through the whole survey in your leisure.
And if you want to get a little extra value from this report, it is free, thanks to our sponsors. However, I've been booked for a couple speaking sessions by companies who want to go deeper on this. So we're available for just a minimal fee to come and talk to you.
Sure, and I'm sure for any of these speaking gigs, they will be promoted via the blog, via LinkedIn, via the usual places. And if I can find them, I will put them into show notes.
Move.
Well, okay, all right. So we're moving subject, but we're not moving off IDP. Last month, you remember, Alan and I talked about a few of the latest vendor research updates. The ones we didn't talk about were the ones which were IDP. So we've basically got, I think, 4 to talk about this time, Dan, of new ones. I'll put a link again to the summer reading list blog post Alan wrote to describe this and his homegrown tomatoes, his Philly tomatoes. So not to be compared to the Canadian clothing company of the same name. The first one that I have, and there's just a random order, is Roots, Alan, Dan.
Yeah, Roots is. Did you mention that we wrote vendor vignettes for these companies? I think listed here, and those are only available if you're one of our research subscribers.
Indeed.
Or if the company itself has decided to distribute it. So what we're telling you here is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. Okay, quickly. Roots, New York City, founded by 2 people that came from the property and casualty insurance industry. And they got sick and tired of the paperwork shuffle going on for claims processing and for intake of new customers. So they set out to create a solution, raised a bunch of money, and now they've got a pretty cool product. We named them the IDP Focus Company of the Year in our annual report back in January, because all they do is work with commercial insurance. So that's all. They're laser focused, which is something we love. It's
something we love, and it's something that we do tend to call out, not just for IDP, but other areas related to AI and automation, where they are very vertically aligned. Also horizontally aligned stuff as well, but particularly the vertical alignment we're particularly interested in.
So now Retiris this is a completely different business. Retiris comes from the email communications background. Their business, they're from Munich, and their business is to set up very secure communications platforms for regulated industries.
Right.
So as you can imagine, their customers are the government, right? Banking, pharmaceuticals, people who have to really protect the communications. And they also have a fax server, because one of the things we found out in our survey that Germany is the leader actually in still using fax in the government and surprisingly in their healthcare system.
Well, that's interesting because, of course, we maybe from the people listening skew towards North America, where we know fax is still very heavy as an exchange format in healthcare. But I don't think that certainly I didn't realize that was the case in German healthcare.
Yeah, surprised me a bit too. So Retiris is dialed into that. They've been moving these documents securely through email attachments and fax documents for about 20 years.
Right.
And a couple of years ago, some of their customers said, "Hey, could you extract some intelligence while this stuff is flowing there? Can you handle some automation?" And they said, "Yeah, we'll look into it." And they created an IDP offering that plugs right into this enterprise-grade communications platform. And this is fairly unique when you think about the different vendors that offer IDP. And this is something that makes a lot of sense because it's already within this regulated, secure cloud, and everything is controlled. I was down there a couple of weeks ago and met with the team, And yeah, they're doing some pretty cool things that you can imagine somebody who owns the communications flow can do. Perhaps a little easier than a standalone product can do. So yeah, somebody worth looking at if you're in one of those regulated industries.
Cool. Affinda.
Yeah, from down under, from the land down under. This is I think the first Australian-based company that I've written about.
Okay.
I was aware of a few down there, but Affinda sort of popped up. They had a product called Draftable, which was, as the name implies, you could use it to work on drafts of contracts and agreements. It was sort of like a Word enhancer thing, Microsoft Word. And they realized that all the natural language processing, or NLP technology that they had developed to create this draft product was really, really good at extracting named entities and extracting sentiment analysis and intent analysis. And so they started to market it for IDP. And yeah, that's what these guys are up to. They're fairly new at this, but they've been doing Draftable for about 10 years. So we liked what we saw. And if you're from Australia and you're looking for document processing, this is somebody to put on your short list.
Good. And there's someone who's worked personally in the NLP industry previously. I have to go away and because I've not read this VV, I will be entirely honest with you. I think I'm going to have to go and read it now just to find out a little bit more about how that works, because that's kind of personally interesting to me from a nerdy point of view. Yeah. Those of you who know me will not be surprised that I'm into nerdery. And last but certainly not least, Hyperscience.
Yeah,
Hyperscience is an update in this case.
Yeah, we updated their VV. I've been covering Hyperscience closely. I identified them 3 years ago as a rising star. And you know, sometimes we get it right. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I would say often we get it right, Dan.
Yeah, often we get it right. More than 1% for sure. So Hyperscience is executed very well. They have become, how do I say this? So if you're a corporation that has a large volume of documents that you have to process, and you have to do it quickly, and you have to do it securely, and you happen to be a government agency, this is the company I would recommend now. Now, this is USA based, most of their business. They do some business in Europe and other places, but mainly in the US government and healthcare and financial services. Hyperscience they're like the IDP person's IDP, if you know what I mean. They're like the specialist experts. They don't do anything else. They really, really spend time trying to figure out how to tweak and make these large volume systems work better. I got to meet some of their customers back in June in New York City. And we're talking, well, this is no secret, the Social Security Agency of the United States, who, as some of you may remember, got doged back in February. And you know, when the Doge guys got in there, one of the things they saw was, oh, the Hyperscience guys are already here. They're already working on a system to automate disability claims, which is a huge paper-bound process in the United States. So yeah, Hyperscience, they call themselves the Kubernetes of IDP. So for all you container, freaks out there, you understand kind of the concept of it. Yeah, they're doing things with VLMs. They were one of the early movers in that about 6 years ago. So doing well, and I think they're probably poised right now to become one of the top vendors by volume at the rate they're moving in, because they're challenging Kofax and Abby and IBM and OpenText, sort of the historical legacy leaders in this marketplace. Yeah.
Cool. And I think starting to use the term like Kubernetes of IDP suggests you're very much a technically focused organization. And a big chunk of general software buyers are like, I have no idea what any of those words mean. So as Dan said, the VVs, or the things we're not supposed to really call VVs anymore, because we haven't called them VVs forever, but we just got used to the term. In fact, even the URL for finding them on our website still says vendor vignettes. And if you want to dig in there, even if you're not a subscriber, you can actually have a little search through and see the wide variety that we have there. Everything from multi-billion dollar businesses down to seed and Series A startups we cover. We're not fussy. We want interesting companies to cover, and you can dig into there. And if you're a subscriber, of course, as you will know, you can download these whole things in their entirety from the website. Final topic today, Dan. Dan, apparently you have some issues. You wrote about some of your issues in the summer. We were talking about, just before we started properly recording here, that it was a very hot summer here in the UK, which for those of us with my complexion, I found that very hard. Dan is made of sterner stuff, but still, the heat might have got to you, and you were a little bit exercised by one or two things around AI, and particularly and we'll put the links to this in the show notes, particularly about being in an affinity group for pizza, wheelchairs, and sofas, and being told that you should store less photographs to save water.
Oh yeah. So let's start with the UK government telling Matt and I, residents of the UK, that because there's a summer drought in parts of England, that we as citizens should take some steps, good citizens, to try to save water. Yeah.
Good idea. Good idea.
And it was the usual list that's been published every year, probably for 40 years, of, leaky toilet, bad, and, a number of other things. And then the new one added, which you sussed out, give Matt credit for that, eagle eyes on that, was that we should all go to our cloud storage, whatever it is, OneDrive, iCloud, whatever your favorite place is you store things, Google Drive. And each of us should delete old photos and old documents from there, because it costs a lot of water to cool the data centers that are hosting all of our images in the cloud.
Yes, now that's important to state here. It's not our spicy photographs that are using more water. It's not that. It's purely just volume.
Exactly. And Matt and I immediately discovered the fallacy to that thing there is, if your grandma is storing 10,000 photos, because she doesn't understand, every photo she takes gets uploaded to the cloud, right? They want you to. That unless she's like running a facial recognition factory for the North Koreans, which probably isn't. But if she was, then there would be a problem with water cooling, because she'd be using GPUs, all the NVIDIA GPUs, and they'd be burning down the house. So you would have to, pump so much water through to cool that. But if that's sitting at rest on a hard drive over there, and grandma goes and gets one of them to show somebody her grandchildren, that barely touches the CPU. So Matt and I decided that the UK government instead should have put something out that said, you should stop using Gen AI immediately, and that will solve the water cooling problem in data centers. But they haven't listened to us, have they, Matt?
No, and of course now, since that, then, the way that weather works in the UK, as of like the third week in August, the heavens opened. No, and of course, that does not solve drought problems. It takes quite a long time to refill reservoirs. But it means if you're storing water in water butts at home, we've now got water again to do any watering of plants you might want to do.
That just makes me upset, Matt, because think about how many grandmas deleted those precious photos, and then 2 days later the UK became the wet UK once again. And I hope they had a backup someplace. I really do. Okay, the other thing that got under my skin, and the reason why we get these, Matt and I and Alan, we get inundated with AI slop because of what we do, right? And occasionally you look at something and go, that's just wrong. And this particular one was, we were trying to find a vendor that could provide our favorite tuna pizza from Italy. because they stopped selling it in the supermarkets here. And I thought, of course, somebody online's probably got this right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Deliveroo or Just Eats can deliver it to my doorstep. And so I did find one in the UK, and I put it in my shopping cart. And when I went to check out, you know how when Amazon does this too, right? Everybody
Yep.
does it. When you go to check out, it says, people who bought this item also bought these other 2 items.
Yep.
And here's the total price, and just click here and you can have them too, right? Impulse buying at its worst or best. Well, in this particular case, the AI algorithm for that shopping cart said, people who buy this frozen tuna pizza, Dan, also buy 3-seater sofas from Habitat and steel wheelchairs for a total of 947 pounds. Would you like to add that to your cart? Well, you know, I thought, this is another reason why I'm not ready for agents.
Yes. Yes, I'm guessing that
Because, yeah.
if you send it off as people now, now is not the time to get into my feelings about computer use AI. But aside to say, I'm not a fan, and one of the reasons I'm not a fan is that, one, there's no real business use for this whatsoever. It's purely demonstrated as a consumer use, and from a consumer use point of view, you end up hitting this wall where, and I'm guessing in this case, the concurrent cohorts for that pizza were very small number of customers, because I don't think at scale you would generate a concurrence between a tuna pizza, a wheelchair, and a sofa.
Well, not if you were using machine learning, no, at scale you would eliminate that problem.
Yeah.
But if you were using an LLM, don't rule out the possibility, because if you use the new OpenAI reasoning model, right,
Mm-hmm.
It might logically say, yes, he eats frozen tuna pizzas, so he probably spends a lot of time on the sofa in front of the TV, and after about 10 years of eating those pizzas, he's going to need a wheelchair to go to the toilet. So it's possible that a reasoning LLM could put that together. But
well, actually, no, reasoning LLMs, what we're just price use is they use a tremendous volume of tokens to do that reasoning, because they're doing all sorts of perturbations. Therefore, one, they're expensive, and of course, two, they're using a lot of water in the data centers while they do this. So it's not, in fact, your photographs. It's actually your attempts to try and upsell a pizza buyer to buy a wheelchair. That's what's using the water. That's what's using the water. It's the reasoning models. This is a nice accidental way to wrap this up, Dan. As ever.
Do I have like 1 minute for one more thing?
Sure.
Okay. So the other thing that irked me, that I had an issue, was there's a certain IDP company that keeps getting into my social media feeds.
Uh-huh.
I warned them, didn't I? I said in my blog that if you continue to do this, I'm going to call you out publicly. Okay. Coral AI, stop wasting your money by running ads in my Instagram and my Facebook. Now, thank you.
Okay, well, there you go. That's a public service information on behalf of Dan. Next time, there'll be 3 more topics and 30 minutes to discuss them. And Alan will be back from his travels around the West Coast, and there'll be plenty to discuss them with. Dan, thank you very much. We'll see you again in, I think it'll be November or December, when we get into predictions and awards.
Oh, yeah.
So we're seeing Dan again in a couple of months. Unfortunately, you're going to see me again next month, because I'm always here and I've got nowhere else to go. So for those of you joining us for the first time, thank you, and hope you'll come back. Those of you who are coming back on a repeated time, thank you for coming by, and we will see you both next time.
Okay, cheers.